You think you'll scare me with your
No,
phone?
I'm just protecting myself.
Protecting yourself from what? I'm the one who should be scared. You're sitting way too close to my building.
I'm waiting for my ride, that's all.
People like you always say that.
People like me, meaning black.
If you didn't want people to assume things, you wouldn't be lurking around.
I'm not lurking, I'm standing on a side.
Jessica Hartwell had lived in the Lincoln Park neighborhood of Chicago for 6 years in a renovated brick townhouse on a tree-lined street where property values had climbed steadily and the demographics had shifted noticeably wider. She'd never filed a police report before, never had a reason to call 911, never considered herself racist. She voted progressive, donated to social causes, shared articles about equality on social media. But when she saw a black man standing outside her building on a cold March afternoon, something in her brain activated. Fear, suspicion, the certainty that he didn't belong. That instinct, shaped by unexamined bias and media narratives about danger, would trigger a chain of events that ended in her viral humiliation, a lawsuit she'd lose spectacularly, and a $2 million judgment that would follow her for the rest of her life. On that March afternoon in Chicago, everything changed for both of them. Isaiah Garrett had just finished a client meeting at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. He was a freelance marketing consultant, 31 years old, building his business one client at a time. He'd pitched a social media strategy to a local restaurant owner. The meeting had gone well. He'd stepped outside to wait for his Uber, standing on the public sidewalk in front of a brick residential building, scrolling through his phone, planning his afternoon. He was wearing a gray hoodie under an olive green jacket, jeans, and boots. He was minding his business. He was doing nothing wrong. But to Jessica Hartwell, who emerged from her building carrying groceries, his presence was threatening. His blackness was suspicious, his stillness was lurking, and her fear, completely unfounded and rooted in bias, would destroy both their afternoons and reshape both their futures. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Lincoln Park, Chicago, a neighborhood that had gentrified rapidly over 2 decades, where historic brick buildings were renovated into million-dollar condos, where organic grocery stores replaced corner markets, where the demographics shifted from diverse working-class families to predominantly white professionals. The streets were clean, the sidewalks well-maintained, the sense of ownership palpable. This was a neighborhood where people felt entitled to decide who belonged and who looked suspicious. Isaiah Garrett had grown up on the south side of Chicago, in neighborhoods where police presence meant harassment, not protection. He'd worked hard to build something different. He'd earned a marketing degree from DePaul University, interned at agencies that underpaid and overworked him, then struck out on his own. Freelancing was unpredictable, but it was his. He set his own hours. He chose his clients. He built campaigns that actually worked. That afternoon, he'd landed a significant contract. 3 months of work, good money. He was feeling accomplished, optimistic, ready to celebrate. He'd called an Uber. The app showed 4 minutes away. He stood on the sidewalk, about 15 feet from the entrance to a brick townhouse building, checking his emails on his phone. The weather was cold but clear, late winter in Chicago, the kind of day where you could feel spring wasn't far off. Isaiah was relaxed, unbothered, just a man waiting for a ride. Jessica Hartwell emerged from the building carrying 2 bags of groceries from Whole Foods. She was 34 years old, worked in marketing for a tech startup, lived alone in a 1-bedroom condo she'd bought with help from her parents. She considered herself aware, educated, progressive. She'd participated in protests, she'd read the books, she'd posted the black squares on Instagram, but none of that awareness had actually penetrated the deeper layers of her conditioning. The subconscious associations between blackness and danger, the automatic surveillance of black bodies in white spaces, the entitlement to question, to challenge, to police. She saw Isaiah standing on the sidewalk and something in her chest tightened. A black man, hood up, standing still, too close to her building. Her mind didn't consider that he might live there, might be visiting someone, might be waiting for a ride. Her mind went straight to threat, to danger, to the need to do something. She pulled out her phone and started recording, not to document his behavior, to document what she'd already decided he was doing, lurking, threatening, not belonging. Isaiah noticed her staring. Noticed her phone pointed at him. He'd been through this before. The suspicious looks, the clutched purses, the assumptions. He sighed internally and made a decision. If she was going to record him, he'd record her too. Documentation, protection, evidence in case this went sideways. He opened his camera app and started recording. That's when Jessica spoke. "You think you'll scare me with your phone?" Isaiah kept his voice calm, even though his heart rate was climbing. "No, I'm just protecting myself." Jessica took a step closer, her voice rising. Protecting yourself from what? I'm the one who should be scared. You're standing way too close to my building. Isaiah gestured to the street. I'm waiting for my ride. That's all. His Uber was 3 minutes away, according to the app. Jessica's tone dripped with skepticism and fear masquerading as authority. People like you always say that. Isaiah felt the familiar anger surge. People like me, meaning black? Jessica's face flushed, but she didn't back down. If you didn't want people to assume things, you wouldn't be lurking around. Isaiah's voice stayed measured, but his words were sharp. I'm not lurking. I'm standing on a sidewalk, and the only dangerous thing here is your imagination. Do you think white residents should face consequences for racially profiling people in public spaces? Drop your answer below. Jessica pulled out her phone, no longer recording but dialing. I'm calling the police. There's a suspicious person outside my building refusing to leave. Isaiah's stomach dropped. He knew exactly how this could go. He'd seen the videos, read the stories. Black men who'd done nothing wrong but found themselves in handcuffs or worse because someone's fear became a weapon. Suspicious person. That's what you're telling them? That I'm suspicious for standing on a public sidewalk waiting for my car? Jessica was already speaking to the 911 operator. Yes, there's a black male outside my building. He's been here for several minutes. He's recording me on his phone. I don't feel safe. The address is 847 West Dickens Avenue. Isaiah kept his phone recording, making sure to capture her words. I want everyone to hear this. I'm waiting for an Uber. I've been here for maybe 5 minutes. I haven't approached her, haven't touched her, haven't threatened her. I'm literally just standing here, and she's calling the police because I'm black in her neighborhood. A few other people on the street had started to notice. A white man in his 40s walking his dog stopped and watched. An Asian woman pushing a stroller slowed down. Someone across the street pulled out their phone and started recording too. Jessica didn't notice or didn't care. She was focused on Isaiah, convinced of her narrative, certain she was the victim. The police are on their way, she said, her voice shaking with what she believed was justified fear. You can explain to them why you're here. I don't need to explain anything to anyone. I'm on a public sidewalk. I have every right to be here. But sure, let's wait for the police. Let's see how they respond to a white woman calling them on a black man who's doing absolutely nothing wrong. Isaiah's Uber was 2 minutes away. He could see the car on the app, driving up Dickens Avenue, but he didn't move. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to give anyone the satisfaction of saying he fled. He stood his ground, phone recording, documenting everything. The man walking his dog approached cautiously. Excuse me, miss, I've been watching. This man hasn't done anything. He's just been standing there on his phone. Why did you call the police? Jessica turned to him, her confidence wavering slightly. He's been loitering, standing right outside my building. It's suspicious. The man shook his head. Loitering? He's waiting for a ride. You can see him checking his phone. There's nothing suspicious here except your assumptions. Another voice chimed in. The woman with the stroller had stopped. I've been recording too. She pointed to the police before he did anything. She said, people like you. This is racial profiling, plain and simple. Jessica's face went from flush to pale. I'm not racist. I just felt unsafe. Feeling unsafe doesn't give you the right to weaponize the police against someone who hasn't threatened you. The dog walker's voice was firm. You've just put this man in danger because of your feelings. Isaiah's Uber pulled up, a silver Honda. The driver looked confused by the scene. Isaiah held up one finger, signaling to wait. I'm not leaving until the police get here, because I want them to see exactly what happened. I want a record of this. Sirens approached. 2 patrol cars, 4 officers. They parked and got out, hands near their belts, eyes scanning for the threat they'd been told to expect. One officer, a white man in his 40s, approached Isaiah first. Sir, we got a call about a suspicious person. Can I see some ID? Isaiah kept his phone recording but raised his hand slightly, making sure they were visible. Officer, before I do anything, I need you to know I'm recording this interaction. I'm also being recorded by multiple witnesses. I was standing on this public sidewalk waiting for my Uber. This woman, he gestured to Jessica, called 911 because she decided I looked suspicious. I haven't committed any crime. I haven't threatened anyone. I've been standing here for about 7 minutes total. The second officer, a black woman in her 30s, looked at Jessica, then at Isaiah, then at the small crowd that had gathered. Ma'am, what exactly did this individual do that made you call 911? Jessica's voice was defensive. He was loitering outside my building, standing there for a long time. I didn't recognize him. He made me feel unsafe. The female officer's expression was carefully neutral, but Isaiah could see the recognition in her eyes. She'd seen this before. How long is a long time? I don't know. Several minutes. And did he approach you? Threaten you? Try to enter the building? No, but Did he say anything to you before you spoke to him? No, but his presence. Officer, Isaiah interjected, I want to be clear. I want to press charges for false reporting and harassment. This woman called 911 and reported a suspicious black male as a threat when I was doing nothing but waiting for my car. She racially profiled me. She put me in danger by bringing armed police to a situation that didn't exist. This is a crime. The white male officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, let's just calm down and figure out what happened. I am calm, but I'm also aware of my rights. False police reports are illegal. Racially motivated harassment is illegal. I was standing on a public sidewalk. I have witnesses, I have video. She had no legitimate reason to call you, except that she saw a black man and decided he was a threat. Should false 911 calls motivated by racial bias carry criminal penalties? Let me know what you think. The female officer turned to Jessica. Ma'am, can you describe exactly what threatening behavior you observed? Jessica stammered. He was just standing there, in a hoodie, looking around. Looking around is not a crime. The officer's tone was patient but firm. Standing on a sidewalk is not a crime. Did you ask him what he was doing before you called us? No, but I didn't feel safe. The officer glanced at Isaiah's phone, still recording. Sir, you said you have video of the interaction? Yes, ma'am. From the moment she confronted me. It's all here. Her calling me people like you. Her admitting she called because I'm black. Her refusing to accept that I'm waiting for a ride. Multiple witnesses also recorded it. The crowd murmured agreement. The man with the dog spoke up. Officer, I saw the whole thing. He did nothing threatening. She profiled him and called you. It's on video. The officer looked at her partner, then back at Jessica. Ma'am, I need you to understand something. Making a false police report is a crime. If you called 911 because someone was standing on a public sidewalk and you had no actual basis to believe they were a threat, that's a problem. Jessica's voice rose. I felt threatened. Feelings aren't facts. The black female officer's voice was steel now, and weaponizing those feelings by calling police on a black man who's doing nothing wrong is dangerous. People have died because of calls like yours. Isaiah's Uber driver had been watching the whole thing, his window down. Yo, man, I'm your driver. You called for a ride to the West Loop, right? Isaiah nodded. Yes, that's my ride. That's what I've been waiting for. That's all I've been doing. The white officer sighed. Sir, you're free to go. You've committed no crime. You don't even need to show us ID because you weren't engaged in any suspicious activity. I appreciate that, officer, but I'm filing a formal complaint. I want this woman charged with false reporting. I want a paper trail, because next time she might call on someone else, and they might not have witnesses or cameras, and it might end very differently. You have every right to file a complaint. The female officer handed him a card. Here's the case number and precinct information. Come in anytime to make a formal statement. Isaiah took the card, then looked at Jessica. You could have gotten me killed today. You know that, right? You called armed police on a black man because you didn't like that he was standing near your building. You didn't ask questions. You didn't use common sense. You just decided I was dangerous because of how I look, and you felt entitled to use the police as your personal security force against people you don't think belong in your neighborhood. Jessica was crying now. I'm sorry. I was scared. You weren't scared. You were racist. There's a difference. And now the whole internet is going to see exactly what you did. Isaiah got in his Uber and left. The police dispersed. The witnesses uploaded their videos to social media. Within 3 hours, the hashtag started trending. Within 6 hours, Jessica Hartwell had been identified. Within 12 hours, her employer had been flooded with calls and emails. Within 24 hours, she'd been fired. The video was everywhere. Ring doorbell footage from across the street captured the entire confrontation from another angle. Cell phone videos from 4 different witnesses. Jessica calling 911. Her people like you comment. Isaiah's calm responses. The police arriving and finding absolutely nothing wrong. The headlines wrote themselves. White woman calls cops on black man waiting for Uber. Karen calls 911 on man standing on sidewalk. Chicago woman fires for racist 911 call. Isaiah filed criminal charges. False police report. The state's attorney reviewed the video evidence and decided to prosecute. Jessica was charged with a misdemeanor. She pled guilty in a plea deal, received probation, community service, and a permanent record. But the legal consequences were nothing compared to the social and financial ones. Isaiah filed a civil lawsuit. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, violation of civil rights. The case was straightforward. Video evidence showed Jessica had no basis for her call. Witnesses testified she'd racially profiled him. Her own words, people like you, demonstrated bias. Her employer confirmed she'd been terminated for conduct inconsistent with company values. Jessica's attorney tried to argue she genuinely felt afraid, but the evidence destroyed that defense. The videos showed Isaiah standing calmly, not approaching, not threatening. Her own 911 call revealed she described him as suspicious solely based on his presence, not his actions. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They awarded Isaiah $2 million in damages. Jessica had no assets. Her condo was mortgaged. Her savings were minimal. The judgment would follow her for decades. Wages garnished. Credit destroyed. Job prospects limited because her name and face were permanently associated with racist 911 calls. Isaiah used the settlement money to launch a nonprofit, Know Your Rights, focused on educating people of color about how to document and respond to racial profiling. He partnered with civil rights attorneys. He created Know Your Rights cards. He spoke at community centers and schools. He turned his trauma into advocacy. He testified before the Chicago City Council about the dangers of weaponized 911 calls. When Jessica Hartwell called the police on me, he said, his voice steady, she turned her bias into a potential death sentence. I was armed with nothing but my phone and my dignity. But she told police there was a suspicious black male. She created a threat narrative that didn't exist, and 4 armed officers responded ready for danger. He paused. I had witnesses. I had video. I stayed calm. I knew my rights. But what about the people who don't? What about the delivery drivers, the visitors, the residents who get profiled and don't have cameras running? What happens to them when someone decides their presence is suspicious and calls it in as a threat? The council chamber was silent. If we don't create consequences for people who weaponize police against people of color, we're complicit in the system that gets us killed. Jessica Hartwell faced a misdemeanor and a lawsuit. But how many others have done the same thing and faced nothing? How many barbecue Beckys and permit patties have called police on black people existing in public spaces and walked away with no accountability? The city of Chicago passed an ordinance 6 months later, the Karen Act, named mockingly after the Karen meme, making false, racially motivated 911 calls a specific offense with enhanced penalties, fines up to $10,000, mandatory bias training, civil liability for damages. The law was symbolic, but it sent a message. Jessica Hartwell became a case study. Universities used her story in sociology courses about implicit bias. Law schools analyzed the lawsuit in civil rights classes. Diversity trainings showed the video as an example of how bias operates even in people who consider themselves progressive. Isaiah's message never changed. This isn't about Jessica being uniquely evil. This is about a system that teaches white people their fear of black people is reasonable and should be acted on. This is about neighborhoods that use police as tools to maintain racial homogeneity. This is about the assumption that black people in certain spaces are automatically suspicious and need to justify their presence. Jessica Hartwell is facing consequences. That's accountability. I received a settlement. That's some measure of justice. But money and court judgments don't change the fact that I was put in danger for standing on a sidewalk. They don't address the thousands of other black people who face similar profiling and never get justice. They don't fix the underlying bias that makes white people see black bodies as threats. The real question is, what changes now? Do white people finally examine their own biases before calling police? Do they finally understand that their discomfort isn't evidence of danger? Do they finally accept that public spaces belong to everyone? And black people don't need to justify their existence in neighborhoods, on sidewalks, in parks, anywhere? Because if we don't address the bias that made Jessica Hartwell see me as a threat, if we don't challenge the entitlement that made her feel she could weaponize police against me, if we don't create real consequences that make people think twice before making that call, then we're just waiting for the next video, the next confrontation, the next black person who might not survive someone else's racist imagination. Isaiah's nonprofit grew rapidly in the months following the settlement. He hired 3 full-time staff members. He partnered with the ACLU and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. He created a mobile app that allowed people to document interactions with one tap, automatically uploading to secure cloud storage with timestamps and location data. He trained community leaders in 50 cities on de-escalation tactics and legal rights. He turned his 7 minutes of terror on a Chicago sidewalk into a movement. But the personal cost stayed with him. The anxiety every time he stood in public spaces, the hyper-awareness of who was watching him and how they might interpret his presence, the exhaustion of knowing that his mere existence could be perceived as threatening, the rage that surfaced unexpectedly when he saw other black people profiled in videos that went viral weekly. Therapy helped, Community helped, purpose helped, but the trauma remained, a scar that wouldn't fully heal. Jessica Hartwell disappeared from public view. She deleted her social media accounts. She moved out of Chicago to a small town where no one knew her face. She worked service jobs under her mother's maiden name. The judgment followed her, garnishing 15% of every paycheck for years. She gave one interview, 2 years after the incident, to a local newspaper. She said she'd learned from her mistake, that she was working on her biases, that she wished she could take it back. But the internet never forgot. Her name remained synonymous with racist 911 calls. Her face remained a warning about the consequences of weaponized fear. The witnesses who recorded that day said they'd never forget it. The way Isaiah stayed calm while Jessica escalated. The way he documented everything while she panicked. The way he knew exactly what was happening and prepared for it while she acted on instinct and bias. They said it changed how they saw their own neighborhoods, their own assumptions, their own silence when they witnessed injustice. Comment below if you think false racially motivated 911 calls should carry felony charges, not just misdemeanors. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, if you think accountability matters and racial profiling starts with individuals making choices based on bias, then hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding that white people examine their fear and stop treating black people like threats. We're going to keep fighting for a world where a man can wait for his Uber without someone deciding he's suspicious. This isn't just about Jessica Hartwell and Isaiah Garrett. It's about all of us and whether we're willing to challenge racism when it's dressed up as safety concerns.